Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I am going to run through the latest Squadron 42 monthly report. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. And if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So firstly, we have AI Content, who have been working on the vendor and patron behaviors that allow AI characters to serve, carry, and consume food and drink. Now it says that this complex set of behaviors is progressing well and will add impressive fidelity to several areas of the game. I assume for Squadron 42 specifically, places like the mess hall, but also in various locations in the PU once it comes to the persistent universe. They also got new medical behaviors working on the Idris. Progress was made on two important usables. The first one is used to open crates, inspect the contents, and then lift items in and out. And the second is for a tactile chair that allows the AI to get in and out by rotating it with their hands. Finally, progress was made on the Quartermaster, which involved new mocap poses, polishing animations, and prototyping dynamic conversations. And this guy is the one that hands out all the weapons to you, I believe, before you start any missions. Now for the AI features team, they implemented several new features for combat with the Vanduul, including gameplay for when the player is in close combat and knocked down. So players will have a limited window to move out of the way before a synchronized execution animation is played, with the team saying this really sells the Vanduul as a serious threat, where split-second decision-making is important to win the fight against the Vanduul, and if you successfully dodge, it will give you a short breathing period to mount a counter-attack. Now this sounds pretty interesting and could be quite a bit of fun or bit of suspense, but I do hope it's not going to result in a repetitive, timed action that happens every time you get knocked down. Now for vehicle AI and vehicle features, they worked together on a system for Chapter 1, which involved a large number of AI attacking a capital ship in coordinated waves. Now this required improvements and fixes, with the team improving the system that allows NPCs to pick splines to fly along during attack runs. So basically deciding on the approach that it's going to take in order to get the best attack. Really excited to see this kind of action in Squadron 42. It sounds like there's going to be quite a few big battles, or at least one big battle, quite the epic moment, I'm sure. Now for the animation team, they worked on ladder locomotion for both players and AI, including dodging, and they also continued to work on EVA and Zero-G, improving the feel and functionality, both of which we got to see at the latest CitizenCon, and I will be going through that discussion in more detail and covering what we actually saw in that segment. Gadgets were also further developed, including the deployable shield and Galson weapons. So great to hear that this deployable shield is finally coming back, since we first saw it in 2015 from Ilphonic's pass on Star Marine. I do wonder how much more of an improvement it's had, but this is the kind of thing, I think it's a hollow shield where you will throw it to the ground, or it'll be a gadget that you can collect and carry around, and you throw it on the ground and then it will deploy this energy shield that might be similar to the one on Halo where it depletes after a certain amount of time. Now progress was also made on Vanduul related gameplay, with the focus currently on stealth sections and enemy executions of the player, as we have just heard. Interactions with non-sliding chairs, crates being rummaging, which we have again just heard about recently, vendors, vending machines, data pads, and other life behavior sets progressed as well. And development on the female spec ops continued, with female combatants close to implementation. And finally, for the facial animation team, they continued to work on scene-specific animations with named cast characters. Mocap and on-set facial services were also provided to the narrative team as they continued to flesh out the combat and story needs of the campaign. So it sounds like a lot of polishing going on, a lot of immersive animations and actions are happening, just getting it to look as good as it can be. Now for the gameplay features team, they continued with tasks for the armory, enabling weapons to be delivered to locations, and weapons now have their own set of first select animations when the player interacts with a weapon for the first time. So I do like the sound of having weapons delivered to locations we require, maybe our ship for example, but also it sounds like quite a nice touch having a set of first look animations when you find a new weapon, where you pick it up and then give it a quick inspect before including it in your arsenal. A small but pretty cool detail. Now, moving on to gameplay story, they held a mocap shoot to capture a variety of data for several late game scenes, and once processed, the data will allow the scene to function well in game. A new scene was also created by reusing existing wild lines, which will allow the player to speak to the medic and be healed by them if required. So I'm assuming that this is the onboard medic that you can head to and remove any of the status effects or limb damage between missions, as I guess that if you get any injury of whatever tier during a Squadron 42 mission, you will have to deal with the ailments until you can get back to your ship or find proper medical attention, and it will get worse over time if left untreated. So this will likely be the medic on board the Idris that you will be able to go to and just have a conversation with, and I do hope that, like Mass Effect, they might ask you that while you're on your mission, if you come across any medical supplies or harvestables, to grab them and bring them back. I think that would be kind of a cool passive side mission. Finally, exploration was done on the mess hall scenes to make them all function with the AI animations, so all characters can enter and leave smoothly. Now the level design team is up next, with the flight team progressing towards getting a large part of the game fully playable, with functioning systems and mechanics with a focus on a seamless experience, which we did hear the same last month, but following on from last month, the team expanded this work beyond the first third of the game. So great to hear that their work is no longer just on the first third, but it is now getting the rest of the game fully playable with all the functioning systems and mechanics. The social team focused on several chapters, including the ongoing scene work on the Idris and Stanton interstitials. Now the Stanton here, I believe, is referring to the name of the Idris ship, not the star system that we are currently running around in, as I don't think any of the Squadron 42 campaign takes place in Stanton. But this involved implementation, addressing feedback, and handshaking NPCs from scenes into behaviours. Now they also started shift assignments for the Idris's 80-person crew, including the deck crew, bridge crew, engineers and off-duty personnel. It is going to be quite the experience wandering through the halls of the Idris and seeing all of the crew just going about their business, interacting with each other, being able to interact with them. But if I get time during the campaign, I will certainly follow one or two of them and just see what they do from moment to moment. And finally, with narrative, they kicked off tasks for some cross-discipline chapters involving FPS, flight and social, and level design made good progress on the social-related content, with the majority of their assigned scenes being ready for implementation, with the team saying it's always essential to see the scene playing out in situ so that we can review and assess what additional work might be required. Now, for the narrative team, they spent the month prepping for a performance capture session, with the build-up to this shoot working closely with the design teams to determine a streamlined version of the FPS wildline set. This will allow the various enemy combatants to have enough lines so that they can be reactive without adding so many as to cause undue stress to the amount of content that would need to be captured. It also says that this shoot includes the return of several established characters for additional pickups based on changes to their location and level flow. I do wonder if they're getting these people back to the Imaginarium where it was all first shot, or if they're now using their Manchester mocap studio. Narrative also continued working with AI content on the dynamic conversation system for background characters and begun figuring out how best to incorporate it into the game. And finally, for narrative, they continued the ongoing syncs with the flight and FPS design teams to review the latest level developments, creating or adjusting scripts to fill in areas that feel too empty or require additional content to explain the gameplay. So it's more like they've got the majority of the work done and they're just going through it, making sure that nothing feels empty, feels like it's missing something, just making sure that it's as immersive as possible. Now next up we have the UI team, who alongside working on the StarMap and radar to get many of the separate elements pulled together, added new tech to allow them to create and interact with holovolumes, which will help to get the new versions of the radar onto ships. They also fixed any unexpected glitches along the way and improved the visuals. The team also continued to concept various parts of the Squadron 42 specific UI, which involved finalizing the look and content of the new MFDs or multifunction displays, designing gameplay screens for levels, and completing vehicle style guides. And finally, we have the visual effects team, who continued to work with art design and cinematics teams with environmental effects and destruction sequences, plus work began on a slight overhaul of the particle library to make them easier to maintain as the team spreads across the many varied locations. So as usual, a lot of great progress going on there. It does definitely feel more like polishing and just putting in additional content to make sure that everything feels complete and as it should. But thanks to the CitizenCon chat with Chris Roberts and Richard Tyra, we got a little bit more information with footage, which as mentioned I am working on a dedicated video covering this so that we can delve into exactly what we saw and get more of an impression of how Squadron might feel and play out. But with that said, that was the Squadron 42 monthly report. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome. We might even be live now. You never know. Hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. It does the channel a big favour. And tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.